if I watch anything I've ever made, I'm like, I could have made that. I could have done that a little better or that. You always see like little, but people don't, well, the other thing you realize is like, it's like a remodel. If you walk through one of your own remodels, you can see a million little flaws.
So you want to be a real estate investor, but where do you start? How do you know what information and sources to trust? That's where I come in. I'm Jonny Catani, and this is the Investor Relations Real Estate Podcast. Hey guys, real quick, before we start, go to investwithcatani.com and download my free ebook, Is Commercial Real Estate Recession Proof? Now to today's show. What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Investor Relations Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Jonny Catani, and we have a special show today. We have Nate Adams. Nate is a movie and film director, producer, and real estate investor. Nate, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I had to finally hit record because we were having such an incredible conversation off camera. I was like, all right, we need to have this on camera. So welcome. I'm very excited to chat today. You obviously have done some incredible films, which we can get to, but kind of take us back. Did you start out with a camera in your hand as a kid? What led to where you're at now?
No. Let's see. I started out, strangely enough, spending most of my time on a wrestling mat. So I grew up wrestling my whole life. I won 3 state championships in high school, got a scholarship to college. I wrestled in college, blew out my knee, got into, even when in college, I really enjoyed like acting and stand-up comedy and writing and that, sort of creative stuff. So I was doing that in college. And when I blew out my knee, I got a business degree, but I kept doing plays and that kind of stuff. And then I knew when I got done with college that I wanted to get into the business that I'm in now, which is, film and television, which is that's a completely strange business in and of itself, which is like no other business on this planet. That I just worked, I started out as an actor. I made a living as a really bad living as an actor for 3-4 years. And then I started writing films and started getting in bigger rooms and doing rewrites on movies. And one day a buddy of mine who I still do a little bit of real estate stuff with was like, hey, can you produce this documentary for me? And I was like, sure. And I had no idea how to do it, but I figured it out. Got my buddies to direct it, who were Academy Award nominated filmmakers. And we did a great job. And it, started my whole career. And I've been doing it, for almost 20 years now, producing, directing, writing, making films and distributing films. So, wow. Yeah.
That's awesome. And so when did you discover real estate in there and what kind of stuck out?
Yeah. So, about 10 years ago, I partnered up with a guy named Adam Carolla and we started doing movies, in the podcast space. Everybody knows who he is. I produced a feature film for him called Road Hard, which is about life on the road for a stand-up comedian. And kind of loosely based on the Adam and Jimmy story, Jimmy Kimmel being his best buddy. After that, we started making documentaries and movies and TV shows and all kinds of stuff. And I've been doing it with him ever since. I still go produce on my own as well, separately. But his offices were about an hour from where I lived. So I'd have this like 45-minute to an hour commute. And then that's when I discovered real estate podcasts because, my business does not have a built, there's no 401k in my business unless you have it for yourself, So, I knew at the end of the day that I was going to need, whenever Hollywood chews me up and spits me out, that I was going to need something. So I just started listening to these real estate podcasts, on the way to work and on the way home if I didn't have calls. And then, after a while, after a few, years, you've listened to thousands of these podcasts, you really do learn a lot. And a friend of mine's stepfather was like, yeah, I want to retire and I have these apartment buildings and I want to start selling them. And I was like, oh, well, I'll buy them, And so I started with seller financing, and I've just been buying buildings and investing in syndications and, doing real estate ever since.
That's awesome. I love that so much. And we were talking off camera, they're similar, right? You can syndicate a film just like you would raising capital. Like there's a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Like I told you, I have raised money in every possible way for films from, we've done crowdfunding. Rode Hard, we raised $1.5 million and we crowdfunded that movie. I've done SEC syndication, like crowdfunding. I've done per private investor. I've done where, big companies just hire you to go make a movie or make a, Lionsgate or Redbox or whoever, I've made deals with them. So every possible way that you can finance a film, I've kind of financed, projects. And, for me, all the business aspects of film, I've strangely done that because we had an OTT channel where we had our own channel on Pluto TV. So I did all the licensing deals and the syndicating of the programs and putting them up. And, I just kind of, and like our docs that we had on Netflix, I sold them to Netflix myself. So, I've just done all the way through, making all the way through the film process. I've done it all. And it's the same with real estate, where, you source a deal, you find the deal, you have to rehab the property, you got to hire everybody and deal with all the headaches and the ups and downs. And, this guy didn't show up and this is broken. And, now you have a foundation leak or, whatever's going on, sewer line to the street broke, whatever you got to do, you just kind of learn. And, it's the business of film prepared me for the business of real estate. I
was going to say, aside from probably some nuanced stuff, they sound pretty similar in terms of, kind of the organization in a sense.
Yeah, they are, and, you can do it multiple ways. There's films that have been made with everybody putting in 25 grand and, different ways that you can do it. And, other films are made with just one person decides to put up $5 million or whatever you want, or a company, or you can go out and do what are called pre-sales, where you go sell your movie kind of all over the world and you get a piece of that money, and you paper it through a bank, they take a piece of it and you put it together that way. There's a lot of different ways to kind of make films. And, it always seems like a miracle when you get a movie made, and it's kind of the same with, real estate deals sometimes where you're like, oh, it's a miracle. I got one, especially in this market where you're
especially
like, wow,
in this market, and especially in the beginning too. Like we were talking offline, and you were talking about how you had I guess you just said it a little bit ago. You're like, you had no idea how to produce, but you just went and figured it out.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many operators I've interviewed that are like, yeah, I actually had no idea what I was doing, but we just like found this deal and we did it. And it's just like, yeah, you just, you can either sit on the sidelines and try to learn, or you just go do it.
Yeah. I mean, real estate is separate, filmmaking and storytelling. Like there is a, it's a subjective medium in terms of like what the story that you like and would want to make would be different than the story that I like and would want to make, but real estate is a little more objective in terms of like, you have a property, in a rough idea of like, how do I fix this up? How much are the rents here? What's the rent roll that I need to,
that's,
keep
it's a little more structured.
Yeah. It's a little more structured. And, at the end of the day, like you could make a film and no one could buy it. In real estate, like if you rehab a property, someone's going to buy it. They may not buy it for what you're hoping they're going to buy it for, but they're going to buy it, and you're going to learn in the process. And for me, the process of real estate, I constantly learn. It's like filmmaking. I've been doing it for 20 years, and something always comes up where you're like, well, never had that happen before. I made a movie. I made one of the bigger movies like right when COVID ended. I was producing a Morgan Freeman movie, and it was like stuff that we just never dealt with all the testing and all the things that went on. And like, it just, and then all the unions, because we were the only big movie going at the time. So every union was like calling every day because they had nothing else to do because there were no other movies taking up their time. So, you just learn, and you have to figure it out kind of on the fly, I think, a lot of the times.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was having this conversation earlier where, you can only foresee so many issues, right? And hopefully mitigate those. And then you just have to be like, hey, whatever comes. And, we're going to deal with it. And hopefully you have the right people in place who can do that, which is, again, I'm sure why in film, like real estate, your partners and the people you bring in to help with the film are just as important as, the film itself.
Yep. They're more important. I mean, the people that you work with and the people that, you trust to, run certain aspects in terms of filmmaking. It works a lot like it does, if you're doing like a flip, you have different departments and people, you have electrical, you have plumbing, you have flooring, you have a roof, all these people are different sort of, you have to bring all the best people in each department. It's the same with a movie where you have the best art department, you have the best wardrobe people, you need great editors to, finish your film when it's done, and you need great DPs and camera department to make it. So, it's all about who's running those departments and, who's the captain of the ship, which on a movie is the director, and the producer, who's the person that hires the director. You've got to be able to oversee everybody. And, if you're the investor, then you need a good GC, or you need to be a good GC yourself,
Yeah. Yep. Wow. There's a lot of moving pieces, in film, definitely more, I think, than in real estate in a sense.
Yeah. On a lot of levels. Sure.
Interesting. Okay. Well, you guys need to know Nate's portfolio of films is insane. You can go to his website, chassy.com, and see the stuff they've worked on. 3 of them were on Netflix. One of them I've seen, which then became the premise for Ford versus Ferrari, correct? Isn't that what you were telling me?
Yeah, we did a documentary called The 24-Hour War, about the Ford versus Ferrari story. It's the true story. Like if you liked that movie and you kind of want to know exactly what happened, they screened the movie for us at Fox, and Adam did a podcast with James Mangold and Matt Damon and Christian Bale. Actually, I have a signed movie poster.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's so cool. I've never put up yet.
But you did enjoy it. You did like the film.
It was a fun movie. I mean, I enjoyed it. It was, it's a movie. It's it's a Hollywood version of what happened. When you watch the real sort of story, and it's definitely different. But they needed to do what they needed to do to tell that narrative story in the amount of time that they had to tell it. And, is it the way that I would have done it? No, but, like I said, every person who touches a story is going to tell you a different version of it. That's kind of how it works.
Do you ever struggle sometimes with movies where you're like, yeah, they missed that? Or do you appreciate that they were able to get it done because you understand how difficult it is to just get a film to the finish line?
Yeah, I mean, I struggled with some of my own movies where I'm like, we could have done this so much better. But
do you watch all your own?
Because
I don't listen to my own podcasts.
I mean, for the most part, I will always have to go to a premiere or something of some kind. if it's something I directed, then I've watched it 800,000 times.
Yeah.
I've edited it over and over
Right.
and over again. Like I've seen, 80 versions of it, and I am sick to my stomach of it. But,
Is analysis paralysis real in that? What, like if you spend too much time in the editing booth, you're just like,
yeah, you can really, it's hard, and you can definitely analysis paralysis yourself into, going around in circles on things too much, but again, like, they what they say about movies is nobody ever finishes a film, they just quit. It's like
that
after,
tracks.
because you could do it for like, if I watch anything I've ever made, I'm like, I could have made that. I could have done that a little better, or that. You always see like little, but people don't, well, the other thing you realize is like, it's like a remodel. If you walk through one of your own remodels, you can see a million little flaws, but like,
Yeah. Where you like barely scratched a
yeah,
wall or something, and it's
yeah,
like, but
one
nobody
thing
else sees it.
slightly off, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, that's not perfect. And
Right.
anyone who comes in there to rent from you could care less. And they're like, dude, I don't care. Does the roof leak? No. Okay, good. Then I'm good.
Right.
Let's go. That's where sometimes you have to learn to hit singles. That's one of you got to just go, all right, dude, this is as good as it's going to get. Like I have 2 docs right now that are coming out that I'm like, we've beaten them to death, and they're as good as they're going to get, and that's what it is. You got to move on.
Right. And this is including the meme one we were talking about.
Yeah, we have a documentary on Mad Magazine that we're just finishing. And it has all the guys who,
Yeah, I was a big Magazine kid.
Matt and Bill Gaines. Matt has a great history. I mean, the history is incredible because it's been around since 1955. And then I got like Bryan Cranston and Judd Apatow and Howie Mandel and Jimmy Kimmel and some of these guys who are big Mad fans to come in and talk about their experience with it. And all the guys that wrote it, and the work environment there was super fun. Like they were just zany dudes. And I got David Zucker from who did Airplane, who I really like.
Airplane is an absolute classic.
Yeah. So he came in, and Matt is a big inspiration to him. And so, it's fun for me to kind of put these stories together, and, you just always hope, okay, I hope I sell this, because you never know what's going to happen when you take it out. And then we're doing a meme documentary. I'm doing it with Cedric the Entertainer. And that one, we've got all the, if you're a meme fan, like Tank Sinatra is the main star of it. And,
I'm
Adam,
a huge meme guy.
yeah,
like I was telling you.
Yeah. White people humor, kale salad, daddy issues, all like it's got over, I think, 300 million followers, like just from the memers that are in it, way over 300 million followers.
That's insane. Yeah, I've been, like I said, I was one of white people's first 100,000 followers, I think. Yeah, so it's just incredible to hear like all these names and be like, man, these guys are finally getting the recognition, because they paved the way for memes and meme accounts on social media.
Yeah. See, the funny thing is, this is how it works a lot for me when I make films. Like, so Adam Carolla, who's my partner, is a huge car guy. Like he's got race cars, he races, he is like a car.
Yeah, a lot of car documentaries in your guys' portfolio.
Yeah, he knows everything about cars, and I'm not a car guy, I'm a story guy. And it was the same with memes. Like I was like, I didn't know, I knew what a meme was, but I didn't know like any of these people, or how famous they were, how many followers they had, or like that you can make $1 million a year off being a memer. I had no idea that like people, were making. So, it was like, wow, this is like it's kind of a new form of comedy that people are really making money from. And, it's funny because like I have some stand-up comedians that I interviewed in the film, and they don't really understand. Some of them understand memes, but some of them don't really understand memes. And they're like, I don't, is this comedy? I don't know. Like, they're not comedians. And then, the memers, some of them want to be comedians and they try stand up, but like, just because you're a funny memer, going up on stage and trying stand up, that's a whole different, ball game, like just because you did some shadow boxing at the gym, you should not go take an MMA fight. Bad thing for fighting. It's like, I've seen that happen to some meme people who thought they could do stand-up comedy. And it's like, it's not the same. Like,
No.
It's a different muscle. It's a different thing, so.
Totally. And you have the ability to, like, if a meme doesn't take off, you can delete it. And,
Yeah, that was what they talk about that in the film. They all are like, oh yeah, if I have a rule where if I don't get 10,000 likes in the first 3 minutes, I delete it. And I'm like, oh, I don't even think, I don't even have 10,000 followers. So I'm not I couldn't put 10,000 likes on anything.
Yeah, that's so
They're
wild.
pretty hard on themselves in terms of like, and like everybody wants to, they call themselves content creators. They don't ever want to be called an influencer. That's like an insult to them. So,
Right.
But like they got to hustle too. They got to put out 2-3 memes a day. They got to be, everything's got to be original. There's people steal memes from each other. There's a whole section on that. And, it's really an interesting kind of world. I was sort of fascinated by it all,
Yeah, because it's so different than anything that we've ever seen before.
Yeah.
And then, in our eyes, or at least for me, like, I enjoy it as a consumer, right? In the sense that I'm like, I see it's from them, like, oh, I know it's going to be funny. And, like, I'll find their account sometimes and, you're sending it around. But on the other end is them, like, now it's a business, like you said, they have to put out 3, creating original content. If a brand's involved, having to involve the brands,
Yeah.
just the side of things you don't realize is there, because so many people are like, oh, they have it so easy. All they do is have to post memes. And you're like, yes, but it's like when your hobby becomes a business and then you're like, oh, am I really still having fun?
Yeah.
It's like that. I feel like,
yeah, because it becomes work. I mean,
right,
yeah,
correct.
and they're like, oh, I travel all over the world and I get to shoot stuff and do this and that. And they're like, oh yeah, that sounds awesome. I'm like, after a decade, it's, you don't remember what hotel you're waking up in. You go, is this really that fun? I don't know. Maybe for somebody it is. Because sometimes,
Yeah.
like, people say, so sometimes they say, how's everything going? And I'm like, I'm living somebody's dream. I say that sometimes because
Same.
I'm like, okay, well, this, some days it's awesome. And, I will say, like, I've been a roofer before. Life, it can be much harder than it is right now for me, and I never lose perspective of that. But also, like, life is kind of what you create for yourself. So, sometimes I create a lot more work than I probably need to do. And, sometimes it's tough and it's like not the most fun thing in the world to sit and watch edits till 3:00 in the morning and you're exhausted and can't function and you're still trying to do what you got to do,
Totally. Yeah, I was having this conversation. I was telling my girlfriend, I was like, am I really a good problem solver? Or have I just created so many more problems for myself that I've had to learn how to solve them? I'm like, am I just making myself work harder? So it seems like I'm really good at being a problem solver.
Mhm.
But I love that you're recognizing that. And so now you have the real estate thing to kind of go on the side. And you were saying you enjoy that as well.
Yeah, I really enjoy that part of, finding properties, rehabbing them, getting the rents up, creating value for renters and also for, my future. And, like I said, there's no 401k in my business. So that's my, I have to create that myself. And, I'm doing my first 1031 right now. That's, I sold a building and trying to buy another building, and you get 45 days and you have to identify 3 properties and close within 6 months, and it's a little bit It's a little bit stressful. I've got 12 days left.
Yeah, they're hectic.
And I have a 28 unit building that I'm trying to close on and figure out. And, I do a lot of seller financing, which is terrific. And if you can do that, I would strongly recommend it over.
Absolutely. And I want people to recognize that you guys, seller financing isn't just like, a threeplex. It's someone's had in their portfolio and then their grandpa died and left it to them. And now that person, like, you can seller finance a 28 unit apartment. So
yeah,
you use seller financing a lot. So kind of talk about doing it in the kind of mid-range multifamily.
I've seller financed every level from single family to
will this be the largest one
to multiple commercial buildings. And, it all works the same way, but, I've done conventional financing also, which, there's what you don't realize when you do the seller financing is how many places you save money. When you like, there's no points on the loan, and if you're doing a multi-million-dollar loan, that's a lot of money that you're just sort of, you're giving to the financial institution that gives you the loan, or the, however that's divvied up, but it's money out of your pocket. And, there are tons of fees that go into conventional loans that, really when you do seller financing, you pay a lawyer to do a contract with the person that you're making the agreement with. And then I do all of mine through a title company, where the title company guarantees the, insurance, property tax, and, the loan is paid every month to the person. I have one fee taken out. It's a really simple process. I pay a small fee for that, which I don't mind at all. They give me great accounting at the end of the year. And, for a person, generally the people who sell these to me are retiring. They want out, but they don't have a retirement either. So they want a 15, 20, 25-year payment. They were getting rents every month, which they were using to live. Now they're going to get this payment for doing nothing, for 15, I do 15-year a lot, 20-year, sometimes. And, it's great. Also, the way that I structure my, depending on how you structure the agreement, if you do a conventional loan, whatever you pay for the property, that's the property tax assessment. If you do it seller financing, depending on how you do the agreement, you may get the same assessment. You may be able to keep the same assessment the guy has. And when it becomes a multi-million-dollar property, that's a lot of money that you're saving again. So, there's just a lot of benefits to it if you can find that. And the person, that you're buying it from, they're saving a ton in capital gains tax. If they don't want to go out and try to 1031, they're too tired, they don't have any interest in that. And a lot of these guys who, they're in their 60s or 70s now, and they've owned these things for 30 or 40 years. They might not even know what a 1031 is. And they don't want any part of it. They just want to be done. They've been doing the grind, and they just want to check, and they don't want a big capital gains hit,
Yeah, that is, wow, fascinating. So many, like you said, ways to save, even some I didn't even think about. And there's obviously, and another thing I love about it, as some people also refer to it as creative financing. It's part of the creative financing family. There's no cookie cutter way about it, right? Conventional is pretty cookie cutter. There's a few levers you can pull here and there, but in this, it's like, I've even talked to people who they're like, yeah, I only do 0 down. I just find people who are willing to do 0 down.
Yep.
Right. So there you are, or, seller carry, or, all different things.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways. The great part about seller financing is what you just said. You negotiate the interest rate, you negotiate the down payment, you negotiate how many years the loan is amortized for, you negotiate all aspects of the payment process. The other thing in commercial loans, there's usually an early payoff penalty. So you can negotiate that out. So for whatever reason, if you want to refinance, like, let's say I buy this property and this guy, and I get a 5.5% interest rate. And in 4 years, the interest rate's 3% again, then I would go get a conventional loan because it would be worth it to do that. But if there was a prepayment penalty, I'd get dinged for a point or two, and then I got, and then I got to pay a bunch of money. And in a seller financing deal, unless that's negotiated in by the seller, which usually they don't think about that,
In seller financing, do you kind of take the approach, if they don't ask, you're not going to bring it up with like certain aspects? Like if they don't mention a down payment, you're just going to assume they're okay with no down payment? Or
yeah, I mean, I've never had, everyone has a certain amount that they want, but also you have to, for them, they're looking at, generally they're like, let me talk to my accountant and then I'll tell you, nothing over 50 grand or not, you know what I mean? Nothing over this amount, or, I mean, to me, because in my head, I know how much money I've already sort of penciled out how much I'm saving, so I'm definitely willing to maybe pay more for the property if I can get a lower interest rate, or, do you know what I mean? To me, it's really about like, how do I make this property cash flow? Because, the value of these real, and as you get bigger properties, you're still paying off, 30, 40, 50, 60, $70,000 a year on the property. You're getting a big piece of depreciation if you don't do, a cost segregation and get a bunch up front, but you're still getting a big piece of depreciation that helps you. And, in the beginning on these properties, you're going to, and generally put money into them to kind of get them up to where you want them. So, there's just so many ways to save money and make it so that you don't pay taxes on the other money that you're making. Or, for me, I have a day job, which, thank goodness, because like the real estate that I've had, like I've done really well, but I could not sustain myself on it, so there's just stuff that always comes up. And I'm not like some guys that I know who do real estate are like, they don't want to fix anything. That's just not how I operate. I mean, if stuff happens, I fix it,
So do you self-manage as well?
I usually invest in the same. I did a syndication with my buddy who is an executive producer on Family Guy. We did 25 units in LA, but I invest in Montana where I grew up.
Oh, nice.
So
love Montana.
My buddy that I grew up with and wrestled with in college, we wrestled together our whole lives. He takes care of my properties for me, and I trust him. For me, it's a trust factor too of, I've kind of seen how other, property management's really hit and miss. So it's always really good to trust the person that takes care of your properties, and you want somebody looking out for your best interest.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is fascinating to me when I hear horror stories of property management, because I'm like, their business is predicated on good reputation and taking care of that property, and yet they like don't do that. It's like some of the stories you hear of these property managers, you're like, that makes no sense. They could literally ruin their business with that. But
yeah,
it happens.
It's what happens. And it's, nobody's ever going to manage a property like you would manage your own property. But like for me, I don't have the time or the inclination to deal with most of the headaches that come from the day-to-day of managing an apartment building. And I don't want to. And I pay my buddy, maybe I pay him a little more than most people who are super greedy or like, I wouldn't pay that much, but I don't care because my building's cash flow. And I don't want to be worried, like when a pipe freezes or plumbing breaks or whatever happens, that somebody's not going to be there to handle it. And I don't want to fly back to Montana every 2 seconds to deal with stuff. So
absolutely.
For
Absolutely.
me, it's just worth, I just
I'm
have,
the exact same way. I'd rather pay a little bit more and have that trust factor and know that, it's a symbiotic relationship, right? You also want them to trust that, like you have their best interest. Like, hey, I want to take care of you. You're doing a service for me. I also want to take care of you, instead of like squeeze every last little, you know, point or two out of the percentage they're trying to take or whatever it might be.
yep. Yeah.
So what does the future look like? Just going to keep buying more? Do you have like sort of a goal in terms of, okay, this will be as much as I need for retirement, or what does that look like?
I think, yeah, I would like to keep going to maybe get to like 100 units that I just had myself, you know. But it really depends. I kind of want to branch out and, start, I like that I invested in my buddy's syndication. I wouldn't mind doing a little more of that because it's more passive. And that's better for me with what I'm doing now. And then whenever, like I said, whenever I get sort of chewed up by the Hollywood machine, then I probably spend a lot more time doing real estate, and I look forward to that because I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I don't, yeah, I could not do something, like retiring in the sense of not doing anything doesn't, and listen, I'm so young, so that could change, but it feels the same for you where you're like, I still will be doing this. It won't be like
Yeah.
nearly to the degree, but it's something, to keep you busy and kind of,
Yeah. I'm always going to write. I'm always going to create, help people if they have projects or do what I can because I enjoy that. I like it. I like telling stories and I like really good stories. I just enjoy it. And, the I mean, I'm not a like person that I think would do well if I just sat idle at home and watched Netflix for days on end. No good would come out of that. So,
yeah,
I just like to keep my feet moving. So I think it's better to do that in life.
couldn't agree more. I love that so much. Awesome. Well, as we kind of wind it down here, we'll jump to the final five. I got 5 questions I asked all of my guests. First question: best advice you've gotten from a mentor?
Best advice I have gotten from a mentor. Let's see. I would say be diligent with due diligence. And this goes with buying right. When you at the beginning of the process, that's when you really make your deal. So when you buy something right and like I bought a property off the MLS that no one wanted that had sat there forever and it had a lot of problems. But I factored in all the problems and I was like, okay, worst case scenario is how much it's going to cost me. That's the property I'm 1031ing right now. And I fixed all those problems and I did the math and I knew what I was getting into, and it was a pain in the ass and more so for my friend who's the property manager who had to deal with it all. But I made a good amount of money on that property by looking at it all and doing my due diligence and really understanding how much everything would cost in worst case scenario. And knowing that, that I had the bankroll to deal with it just in case I wasn't like sweating every month for like, oh, if this had, if the foundation leaks, I'm dead. I'm not,
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's probably got to be a certain threshold where you're like, okay, that's not something I want to take on. Like, all right, that's
yeah.
borderline having to tear it down and rebuild.
Right. Yep.
Love that. What is it about your career that makes you feel like you're fulfilling your why?
It's that I get to, do some part of my career to give back, to tell stories that maybe weren't told, that I was very proud to tell. We did a documentary called Uppity about the first Black driver who raced in the Indy 500. That's my favorite film that I've made, and it's very powerful, and not a lot of people knew about this guy. And, in the 80s, 70s and 80s, he's the only Black race car driver. And, a lot of my friends just didn't know who he was. Even a lot of my Black friends were like, I just didn't know who he was. And now they know, and I feel very proud to be able to have made that story, put it out there, and I have a podcast that I'm putting together. That's a 6-episode podcast with a guy who wrote a book about a civil rights leader named TRM Howard. And I'm, again, really excited to be able to tell that story. Like, I'm just doing that completely for no money and no nothing. But I want to tell the story because I think a lot of people don't know who this guy is. And his story is fascinating to me. And I want more people to know who that is. So for me, that's the part of my job where sometimes you have to do things for money because I have a family and I have to, support myself. But there's other times where you can do things that are, like you said, for your why. And to me, like, sometimes you got to do things for your why. And that's.
I love that so much. Did you find both these stories or did they? That's awesome.
Yeah, the Willie T. Ribbs story. So we did a documentary on Paul Newman and his racing career. And Paul Newman is the one who got Willie T. Ribbs his first professional racing job because nobody would hire him because he was Black. So Paul Newman is the one that made sure Budweiser hired him. And then he started kicking ass immediately when he was driving. But it's a really great, it's just a really enjoyable film. And I mean, if you can catch it somewhere, it's really good. It's on iTunes or wherever, but it's a good film that being made into a TV series now by Brian Koppelman and Don Cheadle at Showtime.
Awesome. Definitely going to check that out. I love that. That's incredible. Favorite non-real estate or investment related book?
Favorite non-real estate book. Let's see. I have a lot of favorite books because I'm a reader. A Confederacy of Dunces is one of my favorite books. I really like it. It's a comedy book a little bit, but the backstory about the book itself is the author committed suicide and the book was found in his drawer. Became very famous after he died. So that part of it makes it a little more interesting, but the book is super. I like books that, Catcher in the Rye, that have a little bit of humor to them as well. So that book is, it's got a lot of funny nuance to it. So, there's so many. I mean, I could name probably 20 books.
I love that so much. Well, I've got a list going. I'm definitely going to add that to the list for sure.
I'll probably be the only person who said that book.
Yeah, maybe. It would be fascinating to hear it again for sure. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
If I have any superpower, what would it be? Man, it's a lot of responsibility. I would say, boy, could I use, I'd say the ability to go back in time. I could fix a lot of things, I would assume. Or maybe, or F them up, depending on what I did.
There's some historical moments I would love to go back and just like observe.
Yeah, some I'd like to stamp out.
Yes, well, for sure. For sure. But sometimes I wonder, like, what altering the course of history would really.
That's what I mean,
like,
is you're going to find out the butterfly effect of
correct. Yeah, exactly. Like, don't worry, guys, Hitler never existed, but then like something just
something even worse happened. Right. That's the I mean, would be the issue.
Yeah, totally. Cool. Well, I'm not sure if you like when people reach out to you, but if so, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you if they want to learn more?
You can go to Instagram at NateAdams26. That's probably the best way. I have a Twitter thing, but I don't ever use it.
Is Twitter still going? I don't think I use Twitter either.
I don't know.
I know I don't use Twitter.
Adam uses Twitter a lot. That's
I guess it's popular in Hollywood, huh?
I don't really. I'm not a Twitter guy. We have our company, Chassy Media, CHASSY media.com. You could reach out at info@chassymedia.com. Yeah.
Love it. Awesome. We'll link the Chassy Media. You guys go watch some of these trailers and watch some of these movies. You'll recognize some of these titles too. I absolutely did, which was awesome. Nate, cannot thank you enough for your time. This has been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jonathan. I appreciate it, man.
Absolutely. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching today's episode. I hope you really enjoyed it. Listen, I know it's cliche and you hear it all the time, but please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you know when the next video is coming out. Even though this is technically a daily podcast, you know it's coming out the next day. We have a ton of content coming your way. So please like and subscribe. It helps a ton. Leave comments. Would love to know what you guys think. And we will see you on the next one. Thanks so much.